This video contains spoilers for the entirety of Adventure Time, including the finale and Disneyland Episode 3. Viewer discretion is advised, or whatever, I don't freaking care. So 2020 and 2021 were big years for me. Not because I started college, or because I started my YouTube channel, or because I even made friends. No. Not even because we were in a pandemic, actually. The big thing about these 2 years is that I got back into cartoons. Thanks for being stuck in my house for 6 months and also access to streaming services, I caught up with everything I missed in the past decade, which is a frick ton. If I'm not watching a cartoon I missed, I'm watching anime I missed. That's my life now. It's definitely for the better though. Almost everything I missed I loved. When it comes to a favorite, God, don't ask me that. I can't pick. But of all these shows I missed, one stuck with me more than any others, for better or for worse. It's been a bit of a running gag on this channel that despite being a huge fan of animation, I've never really seen Adventure Time. I mentioned it in 3 videos now, and after watching all the other CN shows I missed, I finally decided to mark this off my list. Which, first of all, now that I've seen this, update to those videos, I wouldn't date Gold, Big Shock. Some of my friends said Finn and Jake should be split as separate characters in the Punchline Explosion video, and after watching, I definitely can see that. That would require me to cut either Marceline or Ice King, and I'm not gonna do that. And finally, be glad I didn't include the Lich in my villain tier list video, because if I did, he'd be super low. Despite his great design and voice, he does literally nothing. They keep building him up like he's this big threat, but he doesn't do anything. The second he seems like he's gonna do something cool, they turn him into a baby. Then they build like, oh yeah, he's gonna come back, he's gonna be really cool next time he comes back. But no, he never comes back. They kill him before he can come back. Yeah, he kills Billy in Prismo, but Billy was still a setup to him, and Prismo comes back, so can you even really call that a kill? Absolute waste of what potentially could have been a great villain. If he was on that list, I would unironically put him below Snaptrap. Easily the most disappointing thing Cartoon Network has ever done. Well, second. Besides that, yeah, I love this show. The animation is bright and bubbly, but it can get really dark when it needs to. Same with like the overall tone. Got one of my favorite cast of characters in animation. Favorite being Marceline and Ice King, honorable mentions to Beemo, Prismo, Finn, Jake, basically everyone. I can 100% see why they saved animation. And I do mean that. The big 3 animation companies were floundering, and none more than Cartoon Network. They had very little in the way of new cartoons. They started making live action shows, which weren't really bad, but come on, Cartoon Network. Johnny Test took over the entire channel, and they thought it was a good idea to name the mascot of a children's network Nudes. Then Adventure Time came in, and, along with the regular show to a lesser extent, changed everything. It really paved the way for a lot of things. Simple but unique character designs with stories that appeal to everyone, but can be appreciated by adults especially, full of more meta moments, but with a deep lore and character story throughout the entire series. Tons of characters that are all unique in every way, and a newfound focus on inclusivity. This show not only paved the way for modern animation, it was the way. No cartoon since has become as big as Adventure Time was. Memes everywhere, cosplayers were at every con, merchandise was existed and sold. Side note, never getting anything late. Merchandise will be hard to come by and expensive. The characters were legit iconic. I think Rick and Morty is the only cartoon that can rival Adventure Time's success. And even then, that's an adult cartoon. In terms of children's animation, Adventure Time was in the league only 2 other shows in the last 30 years hit. Then everyone stopped talking about it. It seems like around mid-season 6 to early season 7, people just kind of stopped caring. I guess that's what having a bee doing the frick for the main character's arm will do. Even nowadays, when late 2000s and early 2010s nostalgia is at its height, people talking about the Wii and DS, old YouTubers, Newgrounds, revving memes, expecting them to be funny just because they're old. Heck, the freaking Angry Birds are more relevant now than they were when either of their movies came out. Cartoons got that boost as well. Look at, say, Freezing Forever Avatar, but none more than the cartoons from Cartoon Network. Memes of Chowder, 12 Drama, and regular show are everywhere. People are realizing Gumball is a good show with more than 2 episodes. People still think that they're unique for not liking Steven Universe. But despite its impressive start and even getting a sequel series recently, I barely see anyone bring up Adventure Time. So since I brought it up, please watch Distant Lands. It's a great reintroduction to the series and really cute. Together Again gave me the Big Depression, and Obsidian might just be the best thing to come out of this entire franchise. But as much as I loved it and the show as a whole, Adventure Time isn't my favorite show. Not even of the ones I've seen recently or Cartoon Network. That's not that big of a deal though. I still love it, but like, that doesn't answer one question I've had about this show. Why am I physically capable of not thinking about it? I swear this show has completely overtaken my life. Even after watching several different things after it, it is still all I can think of. I don't get it. You can chop my head in half right now, and all you will see is bacon pancakes on loop. I am quoting it subconsciously 24/7. I am physically incapable of seeing a penguin without thinking it's going to become Cthulhu. I'm just here watching cinematic classic Madagascar Escape to Africa, and I'm just staring at the penguin thinking, I know you're Trish Kowalski, you elder horror, black and white, flippered fuck! So in an attempt to banish the show from my mind hole, I feel obligated to make a video on it. Problem is though, what do I talk about? There's so much to talk about. Do we talk about my favorite character, favorite episode, the surprisingly deep lore, distant lands, many unanswered questions, many great songs, how lame Lich is? Well, out of all those ideas, the one that got beamed in my melon was this. The Earl of Lemongrab, or Lemongrab for short, is a recurring character in Adventure Time. First introduced in the season 3 episode Too Young. He's voiced by Justin Rowland, one of the only 2 voices he can do, and is in general a nuisance throughout the entire series. He's the Earl of the Lemon Kingdom and an extremely selfish and not entirely mentally stable dude. Later on into the series, the second Lemongrab is introduced, and in season 6, the 2 are combined into the third Lemongrab. In its first couple of episodes, Lemongrab seems pretty cut and dry. He's your normal, kind of annoying and funny way side character a lot of shows have, and he doesn't really seem that important to the overall story. But what makes him interesting to me isn't that. It's that, when you really think of it, Lemongrab is unironically one of the most tragic characters in animation history. To fully understand this video, I need to first explain the concept of something called fridge horror. If you've never heard of fridge horror, congratulations, you don't spend 90% of your life on TV tropes like I do. It's not referring to your leftover meatloaf or Mr. Krabs appetizer, it's referring to... Actually, let me explain fridge in general first. Fridge logic is when you realize something after experiencing it. Could be intentional or not, but it's something that's not straight up said by the work, but it can be reasonably assumed. Whether it's intentional or not, doesn't matter. As long as you can reasonably assume that it's true, you can originally assume it's true. Fridge brilliance is when you realize something actually really smart about it, and of course fridge horror is when you realize something messed up. For example, in Pikmin 2, we see real-world objects all across the world, and the world itself looks like Earth, and it's full of creatures that look like real-world plants and animals, but aren't. It's not a stretch to say that this is Earth in the future, after all the humanity has died and all the other life has evolved and mutated. For a cartoon example, in the finale of Wander Over Yonder, it's stated that Lord Dominator has destroyed every single planet besides one. All of the inhabitants of those planets are safely on the last remaining one, so there's no deaths, thankfully. Until you remember the season 1 episode, The Lonely Planet, which shows Planet Janet, who's a living planet. You can probably see where I'm going here. Dominator murdered Janet. Even worse than one of the people we see on the last remaining planet is Biza, who in her last appearance was living on Buster, a planet-sized dog. I don't see any planet-sized dogs in this episode. The reason I bring this up is because I don't think there's anything with more fridge horror than Adventure Time. Here's a few examples. In the 5th episode, we see Cinnamon Bun fail to do a flip and then smash his head on a wall. From that point on, he speaks and asks like someone with mental problems. We just saw someone get brain damage on screen. At the end of the first Fiona and Cake special, Cake crashes through a window and starts attacking Prince Bubblegum. It seems out of character for her, but think about it. The Prince and Fiona are alone in the bedroom, with Fiona's dress ripped from the bottom down, and Cake just heard her scream, "Get off of me." Cake thought the prince was forcing himself on Fiona. In the 2-part season 6 premiere, we're introduced to Finn's dad, who's locked up in Citadel. The only way to get here is to commit a massive cosmic crime, and we never find out what he did to land here. Put this into perspective, the Lich, whose entire goal was to kill everything, and is literally older than both time and nothingness, never did anything this bad until he killed Prisma. What did Martin do? But Lemongrab as a whole is filled with so much fridge horror that it puts everything else to shame. He's even mentioned more in the article on TV tropes than any individual member of the main cast. It changes literally every episode he appears in, and I'm gonna go over all of them. But this is the twisted life of the Earl of Lemongrab. It starts with his first appearance. In Too Young, Lemongrab comes in, proving to be a massive dick. After Bubblegum ages down to 13 years old, long story short, demonic possession, Lemongrab declares that he's the next in line for Candy Kingdom since she's not old enough. Finn and PB spend the rest of the episode pretty cruelly pranking him. This seems fine enough. Lemongrab is an obnoxious jerk, and even when he arguably goes too far, they are just kids after all. But then you remember, even when aged down, Lemongrab sees Bubblegum as his mom. In a later episode, having a normal mother-son relationship with her is even his biggest dream. To make this worse, Lemongrab is clearly not all mentally there. A writer even compared him to someone on the autism spectrum, which, as someone on it myself, I don't really see. Nettie from later on in the series I can see better. He hates being touched or anything new, and he only really enjoys repetitive actions like sucking on tree roots and Bubblegum singing. While watching the show, BMO is actually the character I related to the most, as he's pretty scatterbrained and tend to talk to himself. But let's take this scene on its own. This episode has now become a mother abusing their mentally challenged son for 11 minutes. Even without that statement, again, Lemongrab clearly has some unresolved issues. So Bubblegum, even young Bubblegum, should know better. We see Lemongrab's origin in this episode as well. He wakes up in a dark room, only able to scream, unaware that social cues even exist, and the only person in the room, only person you'll know for quite a long time, says you're a failed experiment. That's Lemongrab's first experience with living. She then immediately abandons him. At the end of the episode, when everyone reveals how much they hate him, Lemongrab can be heard muttering something, though it's unsure what he's saying. While it's likely not canon, in the Spanish dub he's heard clearly saying, "No one loves me, everyone hates me." This is just his first episode. Dear Lord. His next major appearance is in the season 4 episode, You Made Me. In this episode, Finn and PB visit the city of Lemongrab. As Lemongrab says himself, it has no citizens, or anyone besides Lemongrab. He complains that he's the Earl of nothing, so PB tries to get some candy people to join him. Only ones who step up are the Pup Gang, a gang of rude dudes. The gang go to the city. Pup Gang annoys Lemongrab, including calling him Lemongrace. Remember that. This eventually leads to Lemongrab putting them, along with Finn and Jake, in a reconditioning chamber. It's electric shock torture. This is likely why no one besides Lemongrab lives here. They either left to avoid torture or straight up killed. It's also revealed that he owns a sword that's powered by his own screams, which is even stronger than Finn. He's about to finish them all off until Bubblegum comes in. She presents him a new Lemongrab. They instantly hit it off, panning each other. They're like an old married couple. They're brothers. I'm sure a lot of people will realize this immediately, but it's pretty easy to see why so many people saw this and first thought they were the big gay. It took them a couple full seasons to say, hey yo, they're related. I'm sure it wasn't that big of a deal, but you should know that even at this point, Adventure Time is one of the most ship-happy fandoms ever. Incest is bad is what I'm trying to say. If this was an anime, it'd be fine, but we in America have standards. Sometimes. Also, their gender swap counterparts are canonically together, though they aren't related. Back to the subject at hand, PB made Lemongrab 2 in the kitchen of Lemongrab, out of miscellaneous lemons she found. In later episodes, it's revealed that when lemon people die, they explode into lemons. Earldom is suddenly lacking citizens. Lemongrab has a sword and a torture chamber. Addition, also Lemongrab watches Bubblegum sleep. This is the least terrifying part of the episode. His next big appearance is in the season 5 episode, Mystery Dungeon. It's mostly a joke episode, but from Lemongrab's perspective, it's kind of messed up. He's separated from his only friend, and not only that, he's in a place he's not familiar with. And Lemongrab hates new experiences. Speaking of new experiences, in this episode he's with Ice King, Tree Trunks, Shelby, and Nectar. He doesn't know any of these people, and considering how untrustworthy he is of most people, being suddenly stuck with 4 strangers probably isn't the best for him. Especially when you remember, hey, they're all stuck in a dungeon for who knows how long. I mean, he's the only one that's literally food. Shelby is already living inside of his head after all. Now granted, this was all set up by Ice King, and they were never actually going to be stuck in there forever, but he didn't know that! The next episode is All Your Fault, which reveals that Lemongrab and 2 made kids. Keyword being made. Literally. Lemongrab does actually seem to care about his children though, so that's good. This includes Lemon John, the biggest yet youngest of the lemon people. So big in fact that his organs literally need to be separate from his own body. His purpose for existing is that Lemongrab plans to use him to take over the Candy Kingdom. To stop him, Jake attacks his heart. Instead of killing him, this opens his third eye, apparently, and he realizes that you only cause harm, so he self-destructs. Lemongrab doesn't seem to care, surprisingly. What he does do is consume the lemons that Lemon John exploded into. Yep, heck. All 11 people will consume the flesh of John. They're starving after all. Jesus! In this episode, we get a look at Lemongrab's brain, which says Lemongrab 2's birthday is coming up, and he needs to get a gift for him. In his next major appearance, another 5 short Grables, he and 2 are playing with a doll, Lemon Sweets. This is likely the gift they were referring to. That's sweet. What's not sweet is that they're likely playing with this doll to cope with the death of Lemon John. So we got the sweet, here's the sour. The taste of lemons. Also, Lemongrab eats his brother. That's nice and family friendly. I'll talk about this more later. Also, the reason he does this is because the 2 are fighting over what to do with the Lemon Sweets doll. The original wants it to dance for him, while 2 says it's tired and 2 put the rest. Pretty easy to get this is how they view all lemon people. The next notable episode is Too Old, and it's a big one. Lemongrab has completely taken over the castle, and it and its citizens are the worst they've ever been. Lemongrab 2 is still alive, but missing half his face and also the entire bottom half of his body. Lemongrab clearly isn't taking the loss of Lemon John well. However, a lemony symbol of hope called, Lemon Hope is introduced. And while Lemongrab hates almost everyone, he hates Lemon Hope the most. That's because Lemon Hope plays a harp, and it sounds very nice. Lemongrab hates anything that sounds nice. He constantly tries to send Lemon Hope to rot in the dungeon forever, until Lemongrab 2, popping out of his brother's mouth, incest for exactly what I want in my cartoons, tells Lemon Hope to get far away from the castle, which despite Lemongrab's insane strength, he manages to do, with the help of Finn and PB, along with some other lemon people, some of which are also later eaten by Lemongrab, which considering that this is Lemongrab at its absolute worst, and he's a sociopath, I'm surprised he doesn't just straight up kill them. This leads to the 2-parter Lemon Hope. Part 1 isn't very important in regard to Lemongrab. All you need to know is Lemonhope is a fugitive from the earldom to the point where Lemongrab is posing propaganda wanting his arrest. Also, Lemongrab 2 is still alive inside the original stomach. Also, Lemonhope really doesn't want to save the Lemon people, just to find his own purpose. The second part, however, is a big change for a football-headed friend. Lemonhope comes back to the castle, knowing his destiny and Lemongrab's weakness, though he found a way around it. Earmuffs! That's why I killed Goku, true story. Lemongrab 2 removes the earmuffs though, letting Hope play his song, killing both Lemongrabs and all lemon people inside of Lemongrab's stomach. Bubblegum takes the lemons they exploded into and stitches them into a new abomination, Lemongrab 3. Bubblegum says he's back to his old lonely self, which is just depressing, man. And like, does that mean that she intentionally designed Lemongrab to be lonely? And they merged him and 2 together, and 2 was a decent enough guy, so that's sad. However, this marks the official end of the Earl Lemongrab, but not this analysis, because now we have Lemongrab 3 to deal with. The final big episode of this analysis is the Season 6 episode, The Mountain. Lemongrab 3 has a strange time adapting to his new life, so he seeks out the Mountain of Matthew. Finn and Jake spot him and decide to see what he's up to. The 3 are stopped by a guard, who lets Finn and 3 in, but not Jake. The reason is because Jake has life together, while the other 2 have problems they have to deal with. Finn with his continued simping of Flame Princess, and Lemongrab 3, well, there's a lot. The first trial he goes through is that he's given a decision between 3 choices. The first is his greatest desire, as I mentioned before, having a normal relationship with his mother, Bubblegum. Who, fun fact, in this little illusion, she talks in the same way Starfire from Teen Titan does, which is fun since they're both voiced by the same person. The second is his greatest fear, Lemonhope taking over the kingdom. The final one is him and Lemongrab 2 fighting over Lemon Sweets. Lemongrab decides to help Lemon Sweets out, but in it, he grows smaller. He ends up getting eaten by Lemon Sweets. I can't escape it. And he finds himself on a yellow surface. A voice tells him to taste it. It's grease. The surface is himself. Like the Pup Gang said, he's really just lemon grease. Whatever that means. The tiny Lemongrab leaves. The big one asks him where he's going. The small one says he's going to
where only my pure essence can go.
Lemongrab meets Finn at the top of the mountain, where they meet its ruler, Matthew, who I'm legally required to mention is voiced by Jim Cummings, who is also the voice of Pete. My life is nothing but Pete. Matthew explains that he is the distilled being of everyone who climbed the mountain, in preparation for the second age of terror. Lemongrab tells him to eat a dick, and he kills him by throwing lemons into his mouth. However, as we all know, clouds are made out of people, and they immediately try to attack Finn and Lemongrab. They both escape, and Lemongrab says he's done. He's going home. I take this entire episode as Lemongrab finally getting closure. He puts his citizens above himself, and he realizes his mistakes, and becomes a better ruler. So with Lemongrab finally realizing his mistakes, what do we do with him? Well, what we do with him is actually pretty simple. Nothing. Lemongrab 3 makes a few appearances in the next 4 seasons, doesn't do much. He's in the Minecraft crossover, but doesn't do much in it, and it's non-canon. Also, having to check for this show for making a Minecraft crossover, in the one time this entire decade, Minecraft wasn't the biggest thing ever. In the episode Normal Man, he's seen dating LSP, which I feel like fits. They're both overly loud and flawed, yet at the end of the day, just lonely people. His final notable appearance is in, well, the finale. Come along with me. He joins Bubblegum's side in the war, though he doesn't do much in it, besides for having one of the best scenes in the entire show. After beating Gumball, the Gold appears out of nowhere, with no real build-up outside of 4 brief scattered mentions in the entire series. Almost everyone besides Finn, Betty, and Ice King are sidelining the Battle of Gold, though we do get a nice moment with Lemongrab and LSP, where in their final moments, she asks to kiss Lemongrab, who for the first time in the series, deems something acceptable. Also, side note, they beat Gold by singing harmoniously, which is his only weakness. Not sure if this is intentional, but it does remind me of Lemongrab's death to get Harp and Lemon up. We don't know what happens after that, though the creators said they probably did more, but doesn't know what happens after that. We actually don't know a lot about what happens with a lot of the characters post-finale. Disneyland's clear up some stuff, but not everything, especially with Lemongrab. I mean, we see a skeleton at the start together again, but that's a dream, and we don't see many candy people in the land of the dead, so honestly it's possible that he can't even die. I do want to bring up one more part of the finale before I end this though. As much flack as I give the finale for being kind of sudden, it did do a lot of good things with the show. It answered the question of who Gulb is, albeit rushed. It finally reunited Betty and Simon in a very bittersweet way. It gave Fern a redemption arc that made sense. It added a ton of interesting lore, and of course, confirmed one of the most important ships in cartoon history. Gunter and Turtle Princess. Finally feel seen. Oh, also Bubblegum and Marceline, probably the most important one. What I really want to highlight is this. In the ending montage, we see Jermaine making mural for Lemongrab, and he smiles. This is a huge moment. He's never smiled in the entire series, genuinely at least. But now, he does. Why? Well, I like to think that it's because of this. He's finally found his place in the world. Bubblegum accepts him now, as do the Lemon people. He's finally happy, which fits with his appearance in the mountain. And if this psychotic, cannibalistic, egotistical, flailing man-child can finally find true peace, maybe, just maybe, there's a hope for all of us to finally become acceptable. Well, this video is all over the place. I wasn't expecting this to come along. That's just what Adventure Time does to you, man. I know I only just saw this show this year, but it already holds a very special place in my heart. Thanks for watching this. Maybe we'll visit this distant land again, but for now, thanks for coming on this adventure with me, and I'll see you later. Peace. So